Hey guys, let's talk about visual hierarchy. What does hierarchy really mean, and how do we use it to control the message that we're presenting to our viewers as graphic designers? Let's take a look. Visual hierarchy is a visual language that you need to master as a designer so that you can actually control what your viewers are looking at. If everything is yelling for your attention, nothing is heard. Think about everyone talking at the same volume, all at the same time. It's confusing and distracting. This is definitely a version of a multi-conversation room. This is like everybody talking at the same volume. Nobody knows what to look at. Nobody knows what to follow. Can't make heads or tails of it. This is what people do all the time, and I don't know why. Here's what I'm talking about when it comes to controlling that visual hierarchy and that message. It means that you're creating a first, second, and third. You're ranking things. You're making something that is dominant and subordinate. And you're doing that so that you can control the message, so that they look at one thing first, second, third, fourth, and so on. And you can do that by, like this says, controlling the position, the direction, the spacing, and the size. Spacing is a great way to control that hierarchy. If things are, too close together or too similar in size, we're not really sure what to look at first, and it looks imbalanced. But if we kind of control that spacing and then we decide on purpose where to put things, it also looks that way. So that alignment is a big deal too. So we've got things that are aligned or not aligned, misaligned. We look for these kind of uniform things visually. We are very conscientious creatures. We understand the look of things and we know when they're out of place. We can see things when they're off. And so pay attention to that, look for that, and align things in that simple hierarchy. Probably the most common is just that central line where everything is spaced evenly in the middle. This is where that scaling comes into place. If you have here the scuba diver and the whale the exact same size, how do you know what's more important and how do you even read the scale of the scene and what's going on? Instead, if you size things appropriate to what they are and their, emphasis, then you get something that looks a little bit more realistic or comfortable. And even in a simple 2D image, you see space. Same thing here. Right now, you've got the astronaut and the moon. They're the same size, they're right next to each other. It looks fake. On the other hand, you have the astronaut closer to the viewer and the moon further off in the distance, and you get a feeling of perspective too. So playing around with that size, scale, and perspective really does help sell the scene, but actually control the visual hierarchy. This one, everything is kind of stacked toward the bottom on the left-hand side. Everything is just kind of crammed down there, and there's all this empty space up above. On the other hand, look at how it changes the view of the image if everything is arranged symmetrically and kind of arranged to the left, to the right, filling up the space on the sides, and it creates kind of like a funnel visually, and it feels more pleasing. Contrast is another one of those things you can play with hierarchy, where you're not actually changing the size of things, you're just changing the color or the contrast. So something stands out. So you look at that thing first. You look at the dude who's the light colored uh, with his hands up, whereas everybody else is different. Now, that sameness is kind of a visual hierarchy. Depending on which one has a higher contrast, is the one you're going to see first. For example, in the before, you see everyone the same first, and then you finally notice that the one guy's different. On the other hand, with everything else darker and obscure, you immediately notice the brightly colored different one. Now, is that good or bad, right or wrong? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you control the emphasis. You control the visual hierarchy by what you choose to contrast. Here is a more traditional typography hierarchy, where on the left-hand side, you have everything the same size, and it's all scrunched down toward the bottom. Instead, by changing the size and scale and the color and the contrast, look at how the name Jane Smith stands out so much more. That's kind of the thing we want to emphasize, right? You, the person, this is your business card. You want them to stand out. On the other hand, everything else is kind of secondary, and you'll find it when you need it. I need to know the phone number. I know where to look. but her name is the thing I need to remember first. So I emphasize that. Communication is how we, use this visual language. So if we're trying to create a map system where we need people to understand important information, we want to communicate deliberately and directly with those viewers. Well, that visual hierarchy is what allows us to share really dense and complex information with them in a format that they can easily read and learn without any, further instruction. That's a really complex thing to do, and I really admire designers that can do it well. Another way to use that hierarchy is to highlight specific information for important reasons. This one I thought was kind of cool. As a literal light, um, the glow creates the logo, and we know what the message is. McDonald's is open at night. So it works on many levels. And that hierarchy is literally a highlight, and it's emphasizing the logo and the business in the branding. Hierarchy also makes things easier to read. So by spacing, creating that empty space, creating that visual hierarchy between nothing and something, we actually focus on the message more. And we see that brand and it stands out. And we get to see something more deliberately without being lost in the mess of other messages. Most of all, just keep it simple. That hierarchy does not have to be elaborate or overdone. I think Apple has done this for years where they have a very, very specific, clean, simplified style. So anything they emphasize really stands out because they're not competing for attention with too many mixed messages. They just have a very simple title, a very unique font, and a very open space and the product image. And that's all you pay attention to, and you don't need any more. Another way to do hierarchy is to catch attention in a unique and interesting way. So this one I thought was cool. It's dense and there's a lot going on, but it's done in a symmetric and a balanced way. And the type is interesting and unique, and the color really emphasizes and sells the design. So it all fits together. It's a pleasure to look at it and to see all the detail. It's, yes, busy, but it's not overwhelming with too much information because it's coordinated. And the dense artwork is simplified by the two colors. So you're not really looking at multiple colors, trying to figure it out. So you know what to look at, what to read first. It's a fun image. Also, hierarchy helps you make things pretty. I really like using hierarchy this way. Pretty colors, pretty layout, pretty pictures, pretty design. Why not? It's okay to be pretty. Let it let it sell the message in a unique and beautiful way. I think I can't think of a better way to get people's attention. I know sometimes there's a tendency to make things look really, I don't know, bold and scary and different and ugly to get your attention. I would prefer to go the other way. I would prefer to make things look prettier, nicer, more friendly to get people's attention. Create a structure with your hierarchy. Use it in a visual way so people understand it. So sometimes you really do have technical information or dense brand information you need to you share. So you want a structure that can work on multiple different things. So let's say you've got a print, you've got a website, you've got a postcard, you've got a banner and a brochure. You've got all different kinds of things that you need to use. So this is part of that branding campaign. And so that structure of visual hierarchy is used maybe differently but in a similar way, so they look like they're coordinated and they work together. So if you ever wonder why your designs aren't getting attention, if you ever wonder why things don't look quite right, or if you're ever kind of critiquing something else you see, I bet there's a problem with the way they're doing their visual hierarchy. They're letting too many things either try to get your attention, they're trying to focus on a mixed message, they're using too many colors, or they're using too many fonts, or something that is disrupting that visual hierarchy. If you give your viewer a structure, a pleasant, pleasing, even pretty image to look at, they'll thank you for it and they'll like it.